Oh, wait, not on the right thing. Sorry. When I was a little girl, I loved American Girl dolls, and I would come home from school every day and I wouldn't do my homework. I would get out my dolls and put them on their little beds and dress them in little clothes and set up little tea parties because the way I saw it, homework didn't matter. This was practice for what I was supposed to be when I grew up. The first time I was in the American Girl doll store, I was about 4 years old, and the last time I was older than I'd care to admit. And as we were walking out, I saw an American Girl doll science kit. And I was unreasonably excited to see a small plastic microscope with little slides and a composition notebook and green plastic beakers and clear plastic beakers filled with clear plastic that just screamed science. But of course my brother was still asking if we could leave the store because, as I realized while we were walking back down Fifth Avenue, this was nothing new to him. Children's toys are wrought with gender roles, with girls' toys miming domestic duties. Cooking, cleaning, or child rearing, or else being completely made up, like princesses and fairies. Meanwhile, boys' toys tend to be spatial. They appeal to imaginations and supply future career options. They can be telescopes and science kits to building blocks and fire trucks. I remember seeing those little gummy-making toys with the mad scientists, and boys would make those gummy spiders and worms to scare their sisters, and I would watch the commercial and think, man, I wish they made those for girls. But this trend of pushing boys to be successful and girls to be less than continues on throughout adolescence and into adulthood. Girls aged 9 through 12 are more likely than boys to quit their hobbies, their extracurriculars, and their after-school activities. Interest in science in girls decreases from age 12 and under. In a study of 4th grade boys and girls were 2 times more likely than their male peers to say they were bad at math, even when their abilities were the same. And girls also tend to self-select out of higher-level science and math classes in high school, especially physics, which can lessen their chances of entering careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. The reality is, we don't raise our boys like we raise our girls, and the gender divide starts in the toy aisle. This separation of interest from an early age leads girls to subconsciously believe that certain fields aren't for us, especially that STEM isn't for us, that research and opinions and experiments are not for us to learn. For instance, my family's had Patriots tickets since before my dad was born, but I went to my first game last month. When I asked him why, he said it was because I had never shown interest, but how am I supposed to show interest in something I've always been told wasn't mine to have interest in? How are girls supposed to be involved in topics that they are constantly said to be off limits? We are sending these signals to children that their future careers depend not on their abilities, their skills, their likes or their dislikes, but on their gender. Statistics show that girls are often behind in mathematics and science courses, and many use this to prove that girls are bad at math. However, a new study from June shows that 15% of high school boys are interested in a career in engineering, but only 3% of girls are. Similarly, 31% of boys think a job in tech sounds good, but only 2% of girls agree. And if a person has no interest in the topic at hand because they are told they shouldn't, how can they be expected to perform? How can they be expected to succeed? A young girl's childhood is filled with these subtle but powerful messages that can and often do halt her interests. These are statements from family, friends, peers, and teachers, even strangers, that discourage them from joining the workforce, let alone pursuing STEM. Girls are always given lessons from their parents. Oh, don't touch that. Don't get your dress dirty. Honey, don't you want the pink one? I remember 5 years old at the food court in the mall, and I got a G.I. Joe in my Happy Meal. I must have been crying about it because my mother asked if I could have a girl's toy, and to my delight, they handed over a little pink Hello Kitty toaster filled with sticky notes shaped to look like toast. I was so happy because even at the tender age of 5, I only liked toys that mimicked what my mother did. I never stopped to ask why a girl's toy meant that I got a toaster, or why a girl's toy meant that I got something pink. I just know that 2 years later, my brother told me, "You know your room is blue, and blue's a boy color." I begged to paint it pink. The upside to this phenomenon of gender roles prohibiting interests from a young age is that it is all within our control as a society. A false sense of underperformance leads to the gender gap seen among the workforce and in technology industries today. Girls who perform equally as well as boys on assessment are less likely to express interest in joining STEM, and according to the Organization of Economic Development, this is mostly from lack of parental encouragement. Now, this is not to say that young girls and their parents simply need to believe in themselves, but it is the job of parents and teachers, of toy companies and television shows to tell little girls that they too can do whatever a boy can do. But it's also a bit of a chicken and egg problem. Studies show that communities with more women in the STEM workforce result in a higher percentage of teenage girls enrolling in physics classes in public high schools, which we know can be a segue into further careers and majors. Kids are encouraged from a young age to pick a role model with goals that they can work towards, but there's a limited pool of role models to choose from. When girls aged 11 to 16 were asked to name inspirational scientists, only 2 women, Marie Curie and Rosalind Franklin, made the top 10. Because often schools and books and parents and stories and toy stores and TV shows don't tell us any more than they have to. This lack of education and lack of representation can just confirm what young girls already believe of their abilities, because our core beliefs, our opinions and our morals and our convictions of who we are and who we are to be are ingrained in us before we can speak and before we can read, when the only thing we seem to know how to do is play with toys. Thank you.